بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب زدني علما.
Okay, so now in this section, we'll try to understand digital certificates, which we'll be using in SD-WAN networks for authentication between the controllers and the VHS. So the first thing, we'll try to understand what exactly these certificates are. Okay, so there is something called digital certificates. Now, digital certificates is something you can compare with your passport or any of the government document, like either ID card or driving license. It's more similar to that one. So we can say like it is similar to passport. A certificate also have some information about, just like in the passport, you have your information like what is your name and date of birth, and then the place, probably all the details which are required for you to identify. Similar way, in the case of network, we also have something called digital certificates, which has the information about who is the owner of this particular content or data. So, and to do that, it is going to use some kind of keys. Okay, so basically there will be a combination of public and the private keys which will be used. And this will be signed by CA, Certificate Authority. Just like we do trust a passport. Let's say if you go to any office and you are going to submit some kind of documents, so you are going to submit a passport which is considered as a valid document for identification of that particular person. Now, why? Because this passport is being issued by a government, whatever the country you are, and it's been assigned by the government. So it's like they do all the verifications, and after that only they are going to issue you the passport, which means when someone is submitting the passport as an ID proof, probably you are going to trust that. Now, similar way, in the same case, certificates also will be signed and verified by certificate authority. Now, certificate authority is same as your government authority. So where they will be assigning the certificates for each and every node. So maybe each and every node or each and every website, or even typically the authentication process, identifying each other. So certificates are typically used. So typically certificates are used in authentication process, where let's say if you're trying to establish some kind of VPN connections, or if you're trying to authenticate these two devices, there is a common way where you can use some kind of password on both the sides. So which is something not secure. Instead of that, what we'll be doing is we'll be using some kind of certificates on both the ends. And these certificates will identify that particular user. We can call it as an identity certificate. And this is issued by the CA. CA is going to say that, now this person A is going to tell that I'm A. Now the CA is going to verify and confirm and send a certificate signed by the CA. And when the A and B is trying to communicate, it's going to present its own certificate, which is being signed by the CA. Okay, so certificates are generally used in encryptions, even in authentication process, and also in verifying the integrity, whether the data has been modified by anyone or not. So there are multiple scenarios where the digital certificates will be used. So again, what are digital certificates? Digital certificates is a kind of electronic document which is going to prove the identity of that particular ownership. Like let's say you're sending some kind of files or sending some data, it's going to verify the identity. Like let's say the person A is sending to B. How the B will come to know that you're actually A? So it's going to send its certificates, and based on that, it's going to identify it. So typically this is to prevent some kind of spoofing attacks. There will be spoofing attacks where attacker may try to talk to B as if he's A. So actually he's some person XYZ, but he's trying to spoof himself as a A. So in that case, he has to present the certificate. Certificate is just like, identity, where he has to prove that he is actually person A, and which is something not possible because CA is going to verify, because the actual A is going to get a certificate from CA and it's going to present while communicating with B. Okay, so for authentication, this is one of the most secure way, where you get your identity based on some electronic document, and that electronic document we call it as a certificates. And this whole process we call it as a public key infrastructure. So the public key infrastructure is a framework which is going to generate or create the digital certificates for individual identities, and it's going to store those certificates and then reissue them whenever it is required. So if you try to see some more details on this one, so generally the public key infrastructure, the PKI, we call it as, generally consists of three members. We have something called an applicant, a requester. Like, let's say the person A is trying to communicate with the person B. Now the A needs a certificate from CA in order to communicate. So basically A is going to request the CA, and here we call this a person who is requesting for the certificate. We call it as a applicant. Same way the B also will do. And once the A issues, once the A requests for certificates, so CA is going to send out the key, or we call it as a certificate, which is being signed by the CA. And the CA is going to confirm that, okay, this certificate you have to use, and wherever you go and talk to anyone, you have to present this certificate to everyone, which proves your identity, and it is being issued by the certificate authority. So there are many organizations. If you're connecting to internet, you can get those certificates from any of the vendors who offers you these certificates and verify your identities. Or you can also build your own internal CS server. That's something you can also do. So if you're not connecting to internet, then you can build your own certificate authority as well. So in this case, this will get the certificate. So whatever he gets, that is what we call as digital certificate, or we can call it as an identity certificate. So identity certificate, you just compare this with your passport, which proves your identity with all the details in that. And who is going to issue this? The CA, the certificate authority, is a trusted third parties, which is going to verify, issue, and revoke your digital certificates whenever it is required. So what is CA? Let's see a little bit some more points. Like, CA is simple, an organization, a company, a certificate authority which identifies or which validate the identities of individuals. Like the person A is talking to person B. So the identity is verified by the CA and it's going to issue the certificate. Like, even when you are using some websites, all your websites will be encrypted. So basically at the back end for encryption, it requires some kind of keys, and there should be some kind of authentication process at the back end, whether for the websites or the email address, or if you're trying to access some information on the companies. So there must be some kind of back-end authentication process, which is done based on these certificates, and CA is going to provide that. So with the help of this digital certificate provided by the CA, you can authenticate, like especially when you are trying to communicate between the devices. Like one of the common example, when you establish a VPN connections, or in the case of SD-WAN networks, we need to make sure that the controllers authenticate each other. We will be using certificates here. So for authentication, even when you are sending some kind of information over the internet, you may want to secure that. And for that, you require some encryptions. And even you can also use it for providing some kind of data integrity. Now, data integrity means nothing but the data, ensuring that data is not modified by anyone by using some algorithms. So it's going to sign that data, and if the third party receives the data and if it is matching the certificates, then probably it means that the data is not being modified.